You know that sound, that horrible crunch of metal on a roundabout that every driver dreads? In that one split second, your whole day is ruined, and then the blame game starts. Who is in the wrong? It's always a messy, stressful situation. So today, we're going to cut right through all that confusion. We're breaking down exactly who's at fault in a roundabout crash, according to the rules right here in Scotland.
And look, this isn't some rare thing, right? Roundabouts are everywhere, and the stats show they are absolute hotspots for collisions. The very design that's supposed to keep traffic flowing can actually create this really complex web of split-second decisions where just one tiny misjudgment, well, it ends in a crash. And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? When two cars come together in that circle, figuring out who's to blame becomes one of the toughest arguments in traffic law. But here's the thing, there are clear rules and principles that apply, and we're about to walk you through every single one of them.
So here's our plan for today. We'll start with why these accidents are so confusing in the first place. Then we'll get to the single most important rule for any roundabout. After that, we'll dive into the most common types of crashes, what happens when both drivers share some of the blame, and, this is crucial, how you can actually prove your side of the story. We'll wrap it all up with a simple playbook for what to do right there at the scene.
Okay, let's start with the riddle itself. Why are roundabout accidents just so complicated? Well, it's because in that instant of impact, two different drivers can have two totally different and equally convinced versions of what just happened.
This right here is the heart of the problem. You've got two drivers, and both of them genuinely believe the other person is at fault. One person is saying, they just pulled right out in front of me, while the other is insisting they came out of absolutely nowhere. Without solid proof, it's just one person's word against another's, which makes things incredibly difficult to sort out. Okay, to slice through that confusion, we have to start with the one single principle that governs every roundabout. Think of this as the foundation for figuring everything else out. It's the North Star of roundabout rules.
And there it is, Rule 185 of the Highway Code. It's beautifully simple. If a car is already on the roundabout and it's coming from your right, you wait. They go first. This rule is so fundamental because it creates a predictable single flow of traffic, which is, the entire point of a roundabout in the first place.
But if only it were always that simple, right? The thing is, this golden rule is just the starting point. It doesn't cover everything, like sudden lane changes, or someone going way too fast, or other unpredictable moves. The reality of a busy roundabout is just a lot more complex. So let's get practical and see how this all plays out in the real world. We're going to break down the three most common types of roundabout collisions and figure out where the fault usually lies. This slide covers two classic scenarios. On the left, you've got the pull-out accident. This is a textbook violation of the golden rule. A driver enters the roundabout when they shouldn't have, so they're almost always at fault. Then on the right, you have the lane change accident. Now here, both cars are already on the roundabout, but one driver drifts into the other's lane without looking. In that case, the fault lies with the driver who made that unsafe lane change. And here's the third common crash, the exit accident. I think we've all seen this happen. Car A is in the inner lane, they decide they want to exit, and they just cut straight across the outer lane right into the path of car B. The rule here is crystal clear. If you're exiting from an inner lane, you have to make sure the outer lane is clear first. If you don't, that's a negligent move, and it puts car A squarely at fault. So far, it sounds like one driver is always clearly at fault. But what about when things are a little murkier? It's not always a clean 100-0 split. Sometimes both drivers actually share the blame. The fancy legal term for this is contributory negligence. It basically just means that, yeah, the other driver made a big mistake, but something you did also helped cause the crash. And here's the crucial part. It directly affects your compensation. If you're found to be, say, 30% at fault, any payout you get will be cut by 30%. Here's a perfect example. A car pulls out in front of you, they fail to give way, so they get the lion's share of the blame, let's say 70%. But what if you were speeding? Your extra speed made it way harder, maybe even impossible for you to stop in time. In that situation, you could easily be found 30% responsible. You had the right of way, sure, but you weren't driving with the care you should have been. And that brings us to what might be the most critical part of this whole discussion. It's not just about knowing the rules. It's about being able to prove what actually happened. Because without proof, it's just your word against theirs. I mean, this quote really says it all. Dashcam footage is, without a doubt, the single most valuable piece of evidence you can have. A clear video just cuts through all that he said, she said nonsense. It shows lanes, it shows signals, it shows positions, and it can often settle the argument completely. It's an absolute game changer. But of course, a dashcam isn't the only tool in your arsenal. Think about CCTV from nearby businesses or traffic cameras, but you have to act fast before that footage gets erased. An independent witness who saw the whole thing, their account is incredibly powerful. And don't forget to use your phone to take photos of everything. The car damage, the road markings, where the debris is, it all tells a story.
So, with all this in mind, what should you actually do in those incredibly stressful moments right after a crash? Having a clear, simple plan can make all the difference in the world. This playbook is all about staying methodical when you're stressed. First things first, preserve your evidence. Lock your dashcam footage right away so it doesn't get recorded over, and take photos of everything. Second, jot down every single detail you can remember while it's fresh. Third, if anyone saw it happen, get their contact info. Finally, report it and get some expert legal advice. Following these steps is the absolute best way to protect yourself.
So there you have it. We've gone through the rules, the common scenarios, and the post-accident playbook. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to one thing: proof. So the real question I want to leave you with is this. If this happened to you tomorrow, are you prepared? Is that silent witness, your dashcam, in your car and ready to tell your side of the story?